Well, hello, everybody. I have the great pleasure of being with Julian Santos, the writer and director of the really, I don't want to say fun holiday film, but the sort of dramatic film called The Last Christmas Party, which played at our festival in October. And we're so pleased again to have it as part of our encore series here in the month of December. Uh, Julian, okay, this is not a Hallmark movie,
No.
correct? And where did this movie come from and how did you put it together?
Yeah. So this movie is not your average. It's not your mom's holiday film. That very much is kind of a little jaded love letter to Christmas. And also to kind of say reveal where it came from. It's really from a lot of personal experiences my friends or I have had like throughout college and living in the city. That I think what we really wanted to do was just portray a very accurate picture of what it feels like to be, in your early 20s and kind of screwing up at love. But still really trying and have that without any kind of nostalgia or sentiment, but not in an overly cynical way, to just portray like a really balanced, like this is kind of what it's like, at least pre-pandemic, that is.
Well, and it also seemed like, again, you really put together a really great ensemble cast. You kept it to a minimum of locations, which allowed this all to happen. So, what was it like to pull these people together? And my understanding also is you somewhat workshopped this. And again, I would also say I'm way past my 20s, obviously, but I would also say I think love takes practice, and there's a sort of a need to practice early on in our lives. So how did this get to the ensemble together? And if you workshopped it, how did that all work?
Well, I mean, I think that we definitely knew that our film would like live and die based on the performances. If the performances were not good, then we wouldn't really have a film. Like you wouldn't have a romance, you wouldn't have anything you care about. And so we went through a pretty extensive casting process that we went through like 8 different casting sessions, sorting through about, I believe it was 1,500 people
Oh,
at the end of it. That just like trying to find those leads, trying to find 6 young people who, might not necessarily be known actors, but would definitely kind of bring the spunk and wit necessary to portray. Eventually, we did whittled it down to these 6 people who we really wanted to make sure that their chemistry worked. Because more important than just being good actors, we thought that we have 3 relationships in our film, and we wanted to make sure that all 3 of the relationships you really cared for and you really wanted to see these people, stick together, because that's kind of the dramatic crux of the film.
well, and it's an important thing to remind audience as well is that, if you have 1,500 actors try out, which is a ton of people, by the way, the vast majority of these actors can do the work. They know how to act, but it's a matter of kind of mixing it up and having a certain chemistry as you go and stuff like that. And I would venture to guess when you get a bunch of 20 somethings together, you really share dating foibles and communication mishaps. Because I would also say, there were some what I would consider real life complicated issues of, you know, uh, not having letting a student visa lapse, and immigration is a hot topic, and and different things like that. So how fun is that? Well, tell me a little bit about your journey too. So like you're on the East Coast now, but you kind of started out on the West Coast, and
Oh
why
yeah.
the cross country move?
Well, I'm a San Francisco boy, but I decided I didn't want to spend my whole life in California. And
Hmm.
so I went to college in New York, just because I wanted a breadth of experience in terms of not just spending your life in one state. And I met a lot of collaborators in New York, so I'm sticking around, this East Coast place for a while, just because a lot of the people that I work with, both in front of and behind the camera, are here, and it'd just be a shame to like leave that, after all this time. That yeah, that's pretty much it. Both coasts are nice though. I'm not sure I like one over the other, but currently New York is where I happen to be.
Well, and utilizing, calling in favors and utilizing relationships is sort of the core at most every endeavor, whether it's moving or adding onto your house or getting a dog sitter. It's like, who do you know and who can help you put this together? Now, if I recall, you're like only 24 years old. Are you still 24?
I'm 23 actually.
Oh, 23
Um,
years old. Okay. Make me feel even worse. Okay. I'm three times as old as you are.
hey,
What was it, was, was putting together the film easier or harder, or did it meet your expectation? as you compared to your film school experience?
Well, the film totally exceeded our expectations. I mean, I think that the cast, the crew, and me, put a lot of love into this project, a lot of time, a lot of just literal energy and work, and I think it paid off. And I think that, it was one of those things where it's like, wow, we shot when I was 21. That it's just kind of young people can do. At the same time, I think we did find it difficult at times just to get recognized because it's like, oh, I know we look really young, but we actually did make this film. Like, please watch the film before judging us. Yeah.
Well, and again, I think your generation, yeah, and of course I have access to, making movies on my phone if I have to and things, but you have access to stuff much earlier than some of us that have been around for a while. You learn how to tell stories really early. And one of the things I actually forgot to bring up when we were really talking about the film a little bit was the sort of the non-linear nature of it. Did that come apart at the beginning as you were processing, like this is how we wanted to do it, or was that a collaboration with your shooter editor, or how did this non-linear aspect come about?
Well, the script was originally written chronologically,
Yep.
but I think it was actually during rehearsals that and Kevin Tolo came up with the idea of what happens if we restructure it. With that, some of the problems we're already anticipating with pacing. And I think that was really a stroke of luck, that we really loved the nonlinear structure as the film turned out. And we just stuck with it. Our editor loved it too because it gave him a lot more flexibility than if it was just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that being said, we did keep it a secret from the actors until the first screening, just because we didn't want them to overthink it. We didn't want them to think that like, oh, what scene is coming before mine? No. Just play the thing as if you were living it.
Oh, I think that is really, really interesting. I'm an acting teacher as well, and as I was watching it, and I've just got a thought here as I'm sitting, how I should actually have all my actors watch it, because you're absolutely right. You're actually, one of the things that I caught also was the idea that, you have sort of your main action, but there's usually like secondary action happening. And sometimes you really have to you encourage people to watch the main action, but also watch the periphery, the tertiary things happening, because there's also stories going on there. Acting is reacting. And so I thought it was really fun and all that. You got a lot of reviews, positive reviews all over. As a Filipino American director, it seemed to get a lot of attention. How does that feel?
It feels great. I mean, like, I think that, every positive review is just like a little bit of validation to my cast, my crew, and me that it was worth it. And, thank you to everyone who's ever reviewed and even just watched this film for taking the time. We really do appreciate it. And in terms of me as a Filipino American, to be honest, I think my main thing is that I just want to keep making content, just because, like you mentioned earlier in this, it is more accessible financially to make films than during when people were shooting on like actual film stuff and that I look forward to not only me, but like, a breadth of voices really coming out and telling the stories they want to tell, like, reflecting their experiences on screen. Because I think that with indie film being as affordable now as it is, we'll hopefully, fingers crossed, see more of that.
Well, the last just question or two I have for you, I'm going to bring it back to the Twin Cities Film Fest. So part of this marriage, if you will, of your film and our festival kind of came because you have a native Minnesotan that really worked a lot on your film, Scotty. Tell me a little bit about, you're working with Scotty, who's from Excelsior, Minnesota, Scotty Schwethel. And when she brought the idea of like, oh, submit to this festival in Minnesota, what was your reaction and stuff? So working with her, and also why you decided to check us out.
She is the most wonderful producer that she, it was me, Troy, and her producing it. And I think that she was really a great creative force in terms of being an actress herself, just having no kind of pretensions or BS. And like telling us when we were screening rough cuts that it's like, this character's not working. You need to fix this. But it's like, okay, we knew that, and it was good to have someone that blunt and honest about the creative process, that we love her. She's great. And, she is a native of Minnesota. She, had heard of this film festival. And then, yeah, I mean, we decided to apply just because it's like, sure, it makes sense in terms of if this is something that you've heard of, why not? Let's do it. And also I think just state pride. She's a very proud and happy Minnesotan. I don't know if it's Minnesotan or Minnesota person, even though she's out in New York. Like, yeah, lovely state. So.
Well, I absolutely love hearing that you say you've met someone from Minnesota and we're bold and we speak our mind. I think we have this reputation of
Yes.
being really nice Scandinavians up here, but we're actually quite cultural and diverse, and we
Yeah.
embrace a lot of things about our area, but we
Mhm.
actually get a lot done. Well,
Absolutely.
again, Julian, have been so pleased to have your film as part of our festival. We're so glad to give a few glimpses of it to more audience in this wonderful holiday month of December. And please keep us informed as you start working on other things, so we can take a look at it or we can help promote it. If you have fundraisers, you're part of the Twin Cities Film Fest family.
Yes, we're working on our next upcoming screenplay already. It's called Ink Black. It's a horror film, and by Jove, we're just going at it just because we have time with the pandemic to work on the script. So just trying it out.
You can't go wrong with horror. Thanks again. Bye now.